I walk through the shadow of death left to fear. This is a journey through the halls of hell.
Yes people, what is good? I am BA, back once again with a little review for you. Now this week I want to talk about the show Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've been catching up on a lot of Star Wars media recently that I didn't check out when it first dropped, and Obi-Wan Kenobi was one of those shows. For some reason I had read mixed reviews about it, and I feel like a lot of that was due to just the general hatred toward Disney that people had at that time. I've got to say, the truth is always in the middle, and people now retroactively act like the prequels were good just because they hate the Disney movies so much. Look, I agree, the last two Disney movies were terrible, but it's arguable that The Force Awakens is a better film by itself than the entire prequel trilogy combined, and trust me, that was a sentiment of a lot of you people that are Star Wars fans when it first came out. You've now changed the opinion of due to the way the trilogy went from the first movie. Also, Rogue One and The Mandalorian are better than the prequel movies, so you can hate Disney all you want, but they have made the best Star Wars media since the original trilogy in the 80s, in my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand. The last two Disney movies were so terrible, you guys are almost justified for the blind hatred. The way they treated Luke Skywalker, I mean, oh my god, I'm thankful I'm not a diehard Star Wars fan because I would have been furious. Luckily, I'm so not diehard, I didn't even watch the last two new movies because I read all about them and that's all I needed to know. So anyway, on to this show. Obi-Wan Kenobi follows Obi-Wan during the time just after the prequel movies finished. So it's Ewan McGregor coming back to reprise the role, and he is on Tatooine sneakily watching over the farm where Luke Skywalker is growing up as a child, just making sure that he's okay, safe, nobody's trying to attack him, nobody knows his true identity, etc. And the show almost instantly bait and switches you because you think it's going to be about him watching over Luke, only for a child Princess Leia to be kidnapped instead and her father contacting Obi-Wan to come and get Leia back, so Obi-Wan has to leave watching over Luke and leave Tatooine just to go and find who's kidnapped Leia. And basically Leia's kidnapping was all a trap set up by a character called Reva, who is one of the Sith Inquisitors. If you don't know, a Sith Inquisitor is basically like Space Gestapo if Jedi were Jews. They are just tasked to go to planet after planet looking for any Jedi still alive and exterminating every last one of them. And there's 4 Inquisitors in this show, and even though there's only 2 real main ones, I love the design of all 4 of them. I think they're all quite unique and interesting, and I also read online that a lot of people don't like the performance given by the woman playing Reva, and I was watching it with an open mind, ready to be on either side of the fence about it, and to be honest, I feel like it's kind of unnecessary hatred. Like, if you don't like that acting, how can you ever like the prequels when everybody, even great actors, are giving wooden performances? At least with the Disney content, the acting performances are no longer wooden and theatrical, you know, the modern movie acting performances. I don't want to give away too many plot points, but there are going to be spoilers from this point on because I need to talk about some shit and you don't get to know the shit I need to talk about in the first episode. But they take it to absolute epic scales because Darth Vader is also in this show, reprised by Hayden Christensen, and he is the main adversary the Inquisitors are working for, of course, who finally comes back into contact with Obi-Wan, and I believe this is the first time they've seen one another since their duel that left Anakin with 3 limbs missing and turned him into Darth Vader. And Obi-Wan is at an interesting stage in his life when this show takes place. He's sort of disconnected from the Force, he's incredibly weak in it, he's buried his lightsaber, he's basically forgotten the Jedi even existed, and that's how he's chosen to survive. So when he has to go on this mission to rescue Leia, not only is he trying to find the princess, but he's also trying to rediscover his connection to the Force so he's able to use it correctly again. And if you love Star Wars, you love interesting, unique species and creatures in the background in certain scenes, and when they go to Coruscant in this show, there is so many interesting alien species in almost every shot. I found myself constantly gripped to the background just to see which unique creature character designs they would have popping up next. There's also some really good side characters in this show. I really love the acting performance given by the guy that plays the Grand Inquisitor. You know why? Because there's only so many evil voices in the world, and Darth Vader's is a very specific evil sounding voice. Darth Sidious's voice is really specific. So to be different than those two and still sound theatrically evil, this guy chose a very good vocal tone which makes him stand out in comparison to the other villains, but also just as theatrically evil as Darth Sidious's performance. So I thought it worked really well, and I liked the way they portrayed the Grand Inquisitor. And from here, I don't know any of the extras' names, but you've got one character who's posing as a Jedi at first, but he's not actually a Jedi. He's just using magnets in his gloves and stuff like that to hustle people. Sort of the new, I guess, Han Solo-y hustler kind of guy, but he's got a heart of gold. And his character also worked very well for comedic relief. And then there's the actress who was the Viper's wife in Game of Thrones, and she was Lucius Vorenus's wife in Rome, and she shows up as a rebel spy who helps Leia and Obi-Wan escape. And she also has a cool droid, which is just a sort of heavy lifting droid, which isn't even allowed to speak or communicate with people, but it's incredibly loyal to her. And Ice Cube's son even shows up for a few episodes as another Resistance fighter, so it has a brilliant cast. I also really love the way it's shot, the backgrounds, the Unreal 5 engine working overtime in these Star Wars shows just makes everything look so incredible nowadays. If you compare it to the way the backgrounds look in the prequel trilogies and stuff, I know George Lucas doesn't mind editing his own movies. I would argue he should actually go back through the prequel trilogy nowadays and redigitize all the backgrounds in those movies, because they are fucking terrible and very jarring nowadays when you watch the prequels to see how bad the effects have held up. And I felt like there wasn't a single bad episode in this show. Every time one ended, I was really looking forward to the next one, and my first thought was always, wow, I can't believe that a lot of people told me this show sucked. Personally, I would have liked to have seen them roll into multiple seasons of this show. I have heard Ewan McGregor talk about this, and he says he's not too interested in making it, a 5-season thing, but he's not against the idea of perhaps reprising the role at a different time period in his life if they have an interesting script for him. And the way I see it, Ewan McGregor's at that age now where he could essentially reprise the role of Obi-Wan every 5 years and fill in the gaps of Obi-Wan's life right up to when we see him portrayed by Alec Guinness in A New Hope. But all in all, to sum this up, I would say I was incredibly pleasantly surprised by this show, and I now rank it just behind The Mandalorian in my favourite Star Wars television shows. Now, I hold my hands up, I have not watched Andor yet, and everybody says Andor is the best, so I understand that my list may be a bit skewed right now. But yeah, I genuinely thought it was brilliant and was so surprised that some people didn't like it. So if you've not seen it yet and were put off like me for a while by hearing negative things about it, do yourself a favour and check out the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. It's only 6 episodes, it tells a nice tight story, it's brilliant to see Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen reprise their primary roles as Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, and I genuinely hope they make a season 2 of it. I've got a feeling Disney are going to start straying away from making multiple live-action TV series since the flop of The Acolyte, but it would be a bit of a travesty if Ewan McGregor never reprised that role again. So yeah, that has been my review of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I hope you've enjoyed. If you've liked the video, click like, subscribe, comment down below, come join the Patreon and support me personally. I have been BA. Until next time, peace.